Well, hi everyone, and Babula and I are back with you again to talk about the full moon in Aries. I was going to say Virgo then, Aries. We've just been talking about Virgo. And things that are coming up over the next couple of weeks and how they might affect us. And I have to say, when I think of Aries, like especially full moon in Aries, it's like, shine the light on me, but it's, it's like the red carpet, here I am world, that sort of thing. Are we going to see any of that?
Yes, for sure. And yeah, red, absolutely. The color of Aries is absolutely red. And as we know, Mars is in Aries now. So there is a red energy, in the atmosphere for sure. And so the full moon, of course, is coming up on the 2nd, and the moon will be full in the sign of Aries, because the full moon is always when the sun and the moon are in opposition. You can see it in the sky, go out in a boat in the middle of the ocean, you'll see it. You'll see it at sunset. There's the sun going down, there's the full moon coming up. It's magnificent to actually see that, and you just get such an immediate knowing of, oh yeah, full moon, they're completely in this perfect sort of balance on the horizon with each other. So, Aries is absolutely about me, but it can appear to be selfish, and sometimes does behave very selfishly, but it's actually about autonomy and selfhood and a sense of individuality and identity. And so absolutely the focus is on me, but that's an important part of our engagement with everything, actually, to have a strong sense of our own individuality and autonomy. And so, yeah, Aries is very much me first. Get out of the way, here I come. It's quite instinctively competitive and loves to be first. But that urge to be first is also the pioneering spirit. To bravely blaze new trails that other people might be too timid or cautious or wary. Aries, no, we're doing this, and it goes. And there's that sort of self-confidence that often comes in Aries. And so I think the full moon in that sign, I think, is an opportunity for us to bring more light. Full moon is light. The sun is light. The light is blazing brightly at a full moon in the daytime and in the nighttime. And it's interesting, isn't it, as a metaphor, the full moon at night, it's so beautiful to be out there when everything feels very lit, is that it's like it's a time when we can see more than usual. We can see what might have previously been hidden in the dark or in the shadows. It gets illuminated. So just to go out and walk, I mean, if you can walk somewhere where there's not a lot of street lights and so on, where it's fairly dark, and you can literally see that, experience that. I'm sure most of us have. It's a gorgeous thing, but it is our capacity to see more of what was in the darkness. And in the sign of Aries, it can come with a bit of fire. It's a fiery, feisty sign. That's urge and instinct is to push back or fight or say, hell no, I'm not doing that, to stand up for our autonomy. So it is the sign of the warrior, of action, of making decisions, and in Libra, of course, there's always choices, where the full moon in Aries always needs to be seen within the context of the sun in Libra. So the full moon in Aries only happens because the sun's in Libra. And so the sun in Libra, of course, as we spoke about last time, is about hopefully, justice and balance and harmony and negotiation and considering different points of view and all the difficulties that we humans have around that.
Yeah, the diplomacy too.
It's very difficult for us, That's right, because we all are, pretty opinionated and, hold to certain points of view, but can we listen to another point of view and actually consider it instead of just automatically brush it off, which is what we tend to do based on our already strongly embedded opinions often, So it's very interesting, you know, can we be open? And in Aries, it's, can I see this in a new way? Because that's the other beautiful thing about Aries is it's about the new.
Yeah.
You know, can I do this in a new way? Can I see this person in a new way? Can I hear that opinion in a new way? Can I consider it in a way that I haven't before? You know, that's another issue, I think, with the Aries full moon. But it is also important to say that around us, in our personal world, our relationships, Aries has a lot to do with relationships, and in the world out there, which we can't divorce ourselves from as much as we might like to try, we can't actually, we're going to see argy-bargy. I mean, you'll have plenty of it this year, but there will be. There just will be. There'll be conflict. There'll be things will be flaring up.
Yeah.
And we know that Mars is retrograde in Aries now anyway, so that Aries energy is pretty active, but it's going to be more heightened. And I'm just checking the degrees. Interestingly, the degree of this full moon is 9 degrees of Aries, so it's not actually triggering the Mars and the Capricorn planets directly, but it is just by sign association. But the moon at 9 degrees of Aries is making a strong conjunction to Chiron at 7 degrees of Aries. So, yeah, so when we're having new and full moons, it's really worth looking at what, if anything, is that new or full moon connected to? What other planets is it sort of relating with, communicating with, connect? And so this is with Chiron, the wounded healer archetype. Shamanic energy, and you know, you were speaking about that in our chat before.
Yes.
Yeah, I see Chiron is very shamanic in many ways.
Yes, and this is a time where, as we were saying, our pre-record chat, that this is I'm seeing and I'm feeling it myself that, you know, been going through this dismemberment process where the person that I was is sort of being dismantled through this whole process down to the hollow bone state, so that I can then reconstruct my personal identity, and hopefully that will serve in the future in a different way.
That's right.
And that's what happens in the shamanic process with that dismemberment.
Yes, it's really powerful, isn't it? And very often, my understanding from reading mainly is that very often, and I think this is very Chironic, the shaman, as part of his journey and process and initiation into his destiny, or his or her, the shaman, the healer, the medicine man or woman, goes through many challenges in order to facilitate that emptying out, that hollowing out, that dismembering of identity, so they can become a real vehicle, you know, and like almost becoming like an empty channel. And so it's not an easy pathway.
No.
And that's what we're all experiencing. We're not in an easy time. Nobody is having an easy time, and everyone's being challenged and confronted with so many things personally and collectively. And I think it's like this massive shamanic process we're all in, and so much is being broken down, isn't it? And so this Aries full moon is, the other beautiful thing about Aries is that it's a sign that gives courage, you know, the courage to, I know what I have to do, and to stop thinking about it and take action.
Yes.
The courage to act or to step up or to speak up or to make a decision.
And to ask for what you want.
Yes.
Yes.
That's right. And to put yourself first.
Yeah.
Because if we're very programmed, often women are, and many men are too, but to always put other people first. And in Libra, we tend to do that, like always consider the other. And Aries says, no, I know what I need to do this. And that's the right course of action, you know. So that's a juggling act in many ways. And we can beat ourselves up for being selfish, but sometimes we just got to do what we got to do.
Yes, exactly.
Not be concerned about other people's opinions and judgments about that.
Yeah. And you have to put yourself first to be able to be there for other people when they do need help. You have to make sure you're rested, you're fed properly, healthy food.
That's right. That's
you're
right.
mentally and emotionally stable and calm.
That's right.
Yeah, and work on all
Yeah,
those things.
that's right.
Yeah.
And putting your needs first as a
Yeah.
priority. Yeah.
And you're right, that's not easy for women.
It's
Particularly.
not. That's right. And women, who become mothers and are looking after children, it's very hard to find that time and even mental space and emotional space to do that, to give yourself some priority,
And I think that's a bigger challenge now because women particularly, but men and women these days, their children are at home longer, their aging parents last longer, so they're looking after their children and their aging parents as well at the other end of the spectrum. So there's a lot more, I think, going on about caring, like lifetime caring for people.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. And maybe less so than there used to be because people didn't live as long and children didn't stay at home as long in
That's
times
true.
gone past. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And also in other cultures, there is still the tradition of families, extended families living together, a more sort of communal village type of situation where that's just a natural way of things. But, we in the West are doing it differently, but I don't think it's necessarily easier.
No.
So, yeah, this balance between, being there for others, but also knowing when we need to be a bit selfish for ourselves. So yeah, but I think it's important just to realize that this full moon can really be activating some conflict, and which I feel like I've been speaking of on and off all year, really, but because Aries is so strong this year, particularly the second half of the year. But yeah, the full moon will heighten that over those few days, and just on the full moon, like in the east coast of Australia, for example, on the 2nd, the full moon is exact around 7 o'clock in the morning. So it means the night before and that night, on the 1st and the 2nd, she'll be at her full illumination.
Yeah.
In the early part of Aries, and making that strong connection with Chiron. And so remember, Chiron is on the moon and opposite the sun. So there can be really challenging issues coming up for people in their relationships, relationship dynamics, because Chiron's being acted. And with Chiron, to me, whenever things arise as a wound, and that can be a physical illness, an injury, Aries, an injury. All of a sudden you've cut your finger really badly. A second ago everything was fine and suddenly it's not.
Yeah.
Or
well, Aries it's to do with the head, isn't it?
The head
as
and
well.
Blood and cutting and knives, sharp instruments. So be careful with sharp instruments for these few days, folks. Just to have awareness, because the other thing, we get in a hurry with Aries.
Yes.
We're getting like, bang, cut my finger.
Isn't that why?
You just slammed into the car in front of you at the red lights because you weren't paying attention.
Isn't that why it's recommended that you don't have surgery when Mars is retrograde?
Absolutely.
Is that because the knife could slip?
And also at full moon.
Yeah.
It's really, sometimes an emergency is, and you have to do what you have to do, and you do that. But if it's not an emergency, in medical astrology, they say don't schedule surgery, if possible, on a full moon, because on a full moon, nature and blood, everything is surging and moving, and there's more of a chance of hemorrhaging.
So when you say on the full moon, are you talking about for that couple of weeks?
Around that couple of days.
Days, yeah, right.
Yes. Yeah. So there are so many traditions and things that full moons represent in nature, and our bodies. So everything is up, it's more intense, it's more alive, it's bigger, it's brighter, on a full moon. And in Aries, that Aries energy of the courage of the warrior, our individuality, but also aggression and fight and conflict.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sort of it's first chakra stuff, isn't it? It's,
In many ways it is. I mean, I
yeah.
think it's also third, like,
Mm,
around, I think themes around power and so on. But
mm. This
yes,
first chakra is like your right to be here, your right to be born,
that's right.
you know, and sovereignty, and
That's right. That right to exist. And
yeah, and also it's about your tribe too, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
So just one more point on the Chirons. I think that's important. Chiron's in Aries now for about 7 or 8 years, has been for 2 years now. And that whole journey of Chiron in Aries overall, and it's particularly now because it's on this full moon, has got a lot to do with the warrior principle and the warrior spirit and the masculine energy, the masculine principle in all of us. And how is that functioning or dysfunctioning in our lives inside of us? What are we learning? What is Chiron teaching us about our own wounded warrior, the wounded masculine inside each and every one of us, man or woman? And that'll be different for men and for women and for individuals and so on, and the world. I think this is a big, important journey for Chiron. And I'm just speaking of this now because this full moon is right on it. So this could be coming up for people, just noticing, like if there's a conflict with a partner, for example, or a friend, what is your normal pattern of response? Is it to fight back, and have a big argument or storm out, or is it to just withdraw and shut down, or to give way, to always, there I am, I'm giving in again. And so we just become more conscious, we notice, we observe what's happening, because it's in that awareness patterns start to change. That's the key to patterns changing. We have to see them first.
Well, I just put my Aquarian hat on and leave.
Right, exactly. And I put my Pisces cloak of invisibility on and kind of swim away.
I couldn't be bothered.
Right.
Life energy is just too important to waste on those sorts of situations.
Yeah, and yet for some people, like, this is a critical turning point in their life, to actually stand up and say, you know what, that's not okay for me.
Yeah.
Because they may have never done it before.
And we are seeing that, aren't we, with protests around the world?
Yes, that's right. Like, never stood up before, but this is my line in the sand, and that's enough for me.
Yeah, you've crossed it. Sorry.
That's right. So these are the kinds of themes we're seeing now in general. But this full moon, I think, is heightening those kinds of issues and energies for people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think those lines have been drawn in the sand by the public in general, and I think perhaps that the authorities, the government particularly, have been quite surprised. The people just aren't going to take this. And
the pushback, yeah.
Yeah, and even the MPs, some of the MPs are speaking out about it. And
yes, they are. A few of them are really standing up and being quite Aries, and absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. So there's heaps more going on over the next couple of weeks. So
do tell.
I know, do tell. There is heaps going on. On the 27th, Mercury entered Scorpio. And normally Mercury would whiz through a sign in about 3 weeks, but we're moving towards another retrograde phase, and you can hear the collective sort of groan. But Mercury does this 3 times a year. And he's going to get to, I think, around about 10, I think, of Scorpio, and then he'll turn and go retrograde, and he retrogrades on the 14th. So that's going to be just before the new moon. He will go retrograde, and he will go back through those early degrees of Scorpio and back into Libra. And while he does that, he's going to be making contact with the Mars in Aries and the planets in Capricorn. While he's in Scorpio, and that's happening now, he will be making oppositions to Uranus. So this Mercury phase coming up, and we're in the prelude or the shadow phase now, as he's kind of setting it up, making strong contacts to Uranus, the planet of revolution and change, and to oppositions to Mars, this warrior energy we're talking about, and the squares to all the planets in Capricorn. So Mercury is the messenger. There's going to be messages, there's going to be information, there's going to be announcements. But it's also our thinking, our ideas, our perceptions, our understandings, our communications with people, our conversations with people are going to get quite strong, and there's going to be a lot happening. And part of it could be information coming to light in the collective field, also in our own lives. You go, what? You know, those kind of shock moments. Really? And it causes us to stop, and so the mind has to go and make it a big adjustment. So there's a lot. Mercury's a trigger. And he's often, you know, he's a fast-moving inner planet. Just, it might seem a little bit inconsequential in terms of the power of these big outer planets, but actually he can really cause a lot of mischief and mayhem. And it's not just mischief in like, sometimes it just feels like mischief, you're just being naughty, Mercury. But he's sometimes the trigger for really big things to happen, like other planets can be lined up, and then this little fast Mercury comes and just lines up, just so, bing, triggers it. Like he can trigger an earthquake.
Right.
You know, like that little guy, health issues and so on. So I just wanted to mention that Mercury's, I mean, it just feels like so much is happening. You sort of astrologically go, where do you start? And how do you make sense of it all? Because there's so much happening in different directions. But sometimes it's like that. Sometimes individually we're having a year or two when there's just a lot of big different transits, and other times there's just one or two things happening. You know, I think 2020 is one of those big whammy years. So
I'll pick up on that later, but continue.
Okay, yeah. So on the 29th, I've written this long list, like date after date after date. Saturn turns direct. So that's like now. Saturn is now stationary, meaning he's slowed down, come to a stop, so to speak, just from our perception on Earth. And on the 29th, begins to slowly turn direct again. He's been in retrograde motion for nearly 5 months in Capricorn. Saturn is a key player in events in 2020. Just, in fact, so much to the point that I'm going to do an online seminar just about Saturn and his role in events this year, and his role in our life overall too, and in our birth chart. He's so important. So this station that we're now experiencing of Saturn, plus Pluto is coming to it, is stationary now in Capricorn, both of them at the same time pretty much. Saturn turns direct on the 29th and Pluto turns direct on the 4th of October. So that's really powerful, really powerful. And we can be feeling that energetically as a kind of like, oh God, everything just feels really heavy and sluggish. And Mercury's in Scorpio now too. So that's kind of also quite deep. So things, we can feel like we're being pulled down, weighed down. There's a lot going on. I think there's a lot of processing going on in our unconscious, in the collective unconscious. This is shadow work. You know, we're in shadow territory here. We are all being faced with so many shadows. The shadows of the human collective, our own personal shadows, you know, the things that we may have been avoiding for a long time. And 2020 is a big year of facing shadow. And right now with these two guys stationary. So it's like we're almost in a holding pattern, and we're in a process, and it just takes time. We can't rush this. We can't push it. We can't force it. We can't go, I don't want this anymore. Like, we're in it. And this is how, whatever our own individual experience is, or viewpoint or perception, we're all in it. And in that way, I agree with that statement. We're all in this together, but we're all in this together in our own particular way.
It's like we've opened the door and said, okay, all you planets, just leave, but they crawl. The door's open, but it's just crawling.
I know. So Saturn and Pluto both stationary, and even when they turn direct, it will take them a number of days and even probably 2 weeks, those slow planets, to actually begin to pick up speed and momentum and kind of start to feel like they're moving. And we will feel that shift. I think already, like Jupiter turned direct about 2 weeks ago, and there was an energetic shift. And because these are the 3 big Capricorn players this year. So these other 2 now about to turn direct again. Give it a couple of weeks. I think there's going to be a lot of things happening in the world, like, in the lead up to the American election, of course, this is all playing out. Like, this is an almighty battle. And it's dirty. It's a dirty business. It's a dirty game, and each is trying to convince the population that, this team are blah, 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 and this team are blah, blah, and it's just, it's a bit of a minefield. And so, and it is a very dirty business, and things, and things get rooted out, secrets get rooted out, to cause harm, but also I think it's really important that truth be exposed. I think this is the way forward for humanity. We have to face everything, all of it.
Yeah. Clean house.
Clean house. And in ourselves, like I'm experiencing it, like just a post from somebody or a conversation or something someone says, I'm noticing I'm being triggered, but I'm being triggered, and I'm recognizing it, that it's an opportunity to go, oh, what's this? I'm more interested in my reaction than, so that's where our interest has to be, like, wow, this is familiar. What is this showing me? This is something in me that's reacting to what's just been said. What's that about?
Yeah.
And how many times have I felt like that before? And where does this come from?
Yeah. And I think it's that hollow bone process that we were talking about. It's in that shamanic tradition, the shamans become hollow bones, and they don't hold on to stories. They don't bind to things emotionally.
Yes.
They just work with spirit. Spirit has to have a clean vehicle to be able to work through. And we're going through that collectively, individually and collectively. Our society is, like I said before, dismantling, and we are being dismantled as individuals to create a new future, basically.
But it's had to happen, hasn't it? We've been feeling that for years. We can't keep going like this.
No, we're going over a cliff.
Not absolutely going over a cliff. And in the Zen tradition, they speak about the hollow bamboo, become like a hollow bamboo.
Yeah.
So that life, God, whatever we want to call it, can just play its music through you. Become that vehicle for life, and however it wants to move through each of us in our own unique way. Yeah,
and I have wondered if in future generations that we will reconnect with spirit, and be better channels for that to work. Because if you're going to have a constructive, advanced society in the future, which I'm hoping we will go towards, after we get rid of all this stuff. I mean, you've got to have after you clean house, you'd hope that the future is a bit cleaner and clearer.
Right.
So for an advanced society, you've got to have people who are self-responsible, who work together collectively in a way that is constructive, who are, like everything that we know, we need for a better society.
That's right.
And I've watched enough Star Trek to know that there are just good ways to do that.
That's right. That is right.
Yes. So
I often think a lot of those amazing series and movies, that are so powerfully archetypal about the world and, issues in the world and what's possible. Fascinating. Yes.
Yeah. On to a better future. So now what? What else have we got for the next couple of weeks?
Okay, so over this next week or two, while Mars is in its retrograde phase in Aries, on the 30th, it makes a square to Saturn, while Saturn is stationary and turning direct. So we're going to get retrograde Mars square stationary Saturn. So this is all in the last day or two of September. I'll just run through it. On the 4th, Pluto turns direct. On the 9th, Mars retrograde then will square Pluto. And on the 14th, the Sun will be in opposition to Mars. So the Sun in Libra moves further into Libra, and the Sun starts to engage with Mars and Jupiter and Saturn and Pluto. So, so then we're getting this whole cardinal sign activation, what we call a T-square, between Aries and Libra and Capricorn. From, the Sun in Libra, the planets in Capricorn, the Mars and Chiron and Black Moon Lilith in Aries. It's just so much happening in those cardinal signs, which are all about initiation, and taking action and moving forward and making choices and so on. And then on the 14th, Mercury turns retrograde, and then we come to the new moon on the 17th. So I'll come back to some of those things. It's just like a really packed couple of weeks. And this week that we're in now is really potent with the full moon, Mercury in Scorpio. By the way, in Scorpio, where, our thoughts we're going down, it's like we're taking a deep dive down into the bottom of the ocean. Scorpio is a water sign of untold depths. It's like a bottomless to me. Scorpio, the energy of Scorpio is just, there's always deeper. It's like these deep sea divers. And down there it's completely black. But then they're finding all this amazing life, these amazing kind of alien creatures down there in the black depths of the ocean, in these canyons. It's extraordinary. It's not just dead, it's full of something.
Yes.
And, that's right. And so that's where we go in Scorpio. And that's why for many people, Scorpio is a bit kind of scary, but that's where we must go. This is the sign that takes us to the depths and teaches us to face the dark. And I think one of the things that's a really helpful thing, because remember, the sun's now in Libra, the next sign will be Scorpio. We have Libra, and then we go down. Now we go down and we do deep work, and it's emotional because it's a water sign. So a lot of deep emotional things can be triggered now and stirred up and triggered by conversations and something somebody said. Information that's come to light. Like I mentioned to you before, I had a phone call from someone this morning who is a Scorpio, and something had happened in a conversation with somebody else, and he spoke to me and just burst into tears, because it's triggered something really deep. So that's it's, and there are people who are already kind of wired up in quite a scorpionic way, and they just go, yep, bring it on, absolutely, let's go there. And there are others who are like, no, I don't want to go there. So, we'll all respond to that in our own particular way. So it's in Scorpio that we dig and we dig and we dig, and come on, let's see what's underneath that rock.
Yes. Yeah.
Let's dig that up. Like, well, what's buried in here? We've got to go and have a look. Yeah. So I think, Scorpio, this period, while Scorpio's Mercury's in Scorpio, then it will go back into Libra, but come back into Scorpio. We're going to be seeing a lot of that, and we're going to be experiencing it ourselves. So our thinking mind can feel quite heavy. We can feel like, oh God, I feel like I'm just drudging through sludge.
Yeah.
I feel quite sludgy. So,
oh goody. Something to look forward to.
I know. And this is happening, of course, while Saturn and Pluto are stationary. So normally a full moon is a high energy time. And it can still bring high energy, but within the context of what else is happening, it's a kind of an interesting mix, really. It's a very potent and powerful mix. So The other thing I think is to talk about the Mars retrograde, which we have spoken of before, and we'll keep speaking about because he's with us for a while now. But I just think in these next 2 weeks, from the full moon to the new moon, Mars retrograde will be making these squares to the planets in Capricorn. And that's really worth addressing because on the 30th, Mars in Aries, powerful in his own sign, square Saturn in Capricorn, powerful in his own sign. Mars retrograde, Saturn stationary. That is strong. That is strong. And like images, archetypal images that come to mind when you've got Mars and Saturn squaring off with each other from Aries and Capricorn is it's a battle. It's a battle of wills. It's a battle of authority. It's the individual, I think I touched on this last time, like the individual warrior, throwing spears at the war machine, at the government, corporate war machine, the parent corporations, all of that. And yet that's it's really David and Goliath.
Yes.
That we're talking about, but we are the Davids, but we're actually not standing alone, it's like, but each of us has to find the courage, whatever that means to us. And that's going to look different for every individual. What does that mean for each person to find more courage, to stand in whatever way? And this can absolutely be going on in people's personal lives, within their families, at work. I'm hearing many stories from friends and clients and so on about their own experiences of this and the kind of battles they're dealing with, the challenges they're dealing with, the confrontations, the issues, like how far do I push this? How much do I say? I've never said this before, but now it's time to say it, or now it's time for me to act, all these kinds of issues are coming up, and it's very strong, and it is a battlefield in the world, and in our own lives, and the other thing about it is that it's not a time to rush anything or push anything because Mars is retrograde.
Yes, that's
going
right.
back.
Yeah.
He's like, it's almost like the warrior. I'm speaking in metaphors now. Might be literal for some, but I'm speaking as a metaphor. Like Mars, the warrior, is kind of, he's still in the battle. The battlefield is still happening, but he's preparing himself. He's sharpening his sword. He's repairing. He's cleaning the weapons, so to speak. I'm speaking metaphorically. He's examining, or he's questioning the orders from the general. Like we know in these big wars that have happened in the past, some of these stories have come to light, of generals sending the troops into battles where clearly they were just all going to be slaughtered, and they were. So what was that about? So like the general is represented by Saturn and Capricorn. And the men and women going into battle, actually on the battlefield, are the sort of Mars in Aries, so to speak. So, and that's the David and Goliath issue again. So all these things. So like questioning those orders, like, wait a minute, what's that about?
You have to have confidence to do that, don't you?
You do, and courage. That's right. And so these are the kind of themes. So you can take that idea, that metaphor, that archetypal idea, into our own personal situations and circumstances. And how might you translate that in your own experience? Right here, right now in your life. But it can also absolutely be very real out there, and is, I think, very real out there.
And are there ways that you would recommend to people to deal with that Aries energy in a positive, constructive manner?
Mars is not an easy energy for most of us. It's not. And, you know, like if we've never yelled at anybody, if we've never stood up for ourselves, if we've never felt that confidence and that inner strength and so on, to declare, no, I don't want that, or that's not okay for me, or you know what, this is what I want, you know, whatever it might be. Like Mars is energy. In our body, it rules the blood, the red blood cells, the muscles, the capacity to take action, feeling strong. Like a warrior has to be fit, has to have a body that can do what it has to do. So, you know, we might, it's a really good time to get more exercise. Because like I've become aware of this. I actually need more exercise. My body is not strong.
Yes.
And that's up to me. I'm the only one who can do it.
Yeah.
You know, I can't wave a wand and just make it happen.
Yeah.
I have to actually get over my inertia, you know, and actually go out the door and do it, whatever that means, you know.
Get physical.
Absolutely get physical. And I think this is super important because it helps out, it makes a difference to our well-being if we feel like, oh, my muscles are getting stronger.
Yeah. And
I go to a yoga class, a wonderful teacher here, and we're working on getting our legs stronger, and it's actually happening.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
And so, or to go to a gym or to take up Pilates or Zumba or whatever it is, now is a really good time, because not only does it help our body, clears our head, and it actually makes us feel more alive. And we need that.
Yes.
We need to feel alive. Like I've got that, you know, like, you know, just when we go outside for a walk, wow, that feels better. I'm so glad I did that. I resisted, and I made myself do it. Fantastic. That feels something. You know, it's that, getting down to that stuff. Can be putting on really strong music, shutting all your doors and windows if you have to, so you don't upset the neighbours, and just dance, move your body, you know, get native, like really get down and move and feel if you're feeling angry and frustrated, because there's a lot of that in the field as well now. You know, express it, feel it, paint it, whatever ways you have that are safe and won't harm you or somebody else, like let it out. Like, you know, there's that old method, you know, from the 80s, get a stack of phone books, although we don't have phone books anymore, you know, and a piece of hose, and just can do it with pillows and cushions. Great thing to do with children when they're feeling really, like make it a game, you know, get pillows and just beat the hell out of them, just, and make it fun, you know, make noise. You know, those kinds of things are really to discharge some of that buildup of frustration.
Yeah, getting rid of that excess energy.
That's right.
And I know when I go for a walk, I feel, I'm saying to myself mentally, it feels good to feel my body. You know, because this year for me, well, since March, has been a lot slower than what it has in previous years because of the restrictions and all that sort of stuff. And I can feel my body has slowed down, and I've at times I get into a routine, a rut of slow, which has its benefits when you're not feeling great and all that sort of stuff. But, you know, only for a while. You don't want to be stuck on the island in the Pacific for forever. Right. You've got to get out there. So, it just feels really good. I feel so much better after I go walking every day, because it's just...
Me too.
Yeah.
And it's the physical exercise, but it's also just being out under the sky and the trees and seeing people, and just, it's really, really good for our well-being on so many levels. Or, you know, depending on where you live, go for a run on the beach or jump in the ocean, or go down to your pool and swim, you know, whatever, or go get your friends together for a game of tennis, you know, whatever is the thing that you enjoy doing that moves your body.
Yes.
Like I've found out that not far from where I live, there's a senior Zumba class, and I think I'm going to find out about that, because I love to dance.
Yes,
and I am older, and I have a couple of joints that kind of don't let me do things that I used to when I was younger. I thought, and Zumba's pretty full on.
Oh, it is. I've done it.
Senior Zumba, now that could do me very nicely, you know. So I'm going to try it out and see if it's, you know, if it's kind of works for me.
Yeah.
And it's just local, so So, you know, and we have to make it, that's why we have to like be brave and make the decision and actually do it. Like Aries will just do it. Don't think anymore about it. Pick
Yeah, I
up
think,
the phone and do it.
yeah, you have to take yourself by the scruff of the neck because no one else will,
That's right.
and get out and do it.
That's right. Because it can be such a strong, with these squares to these stationary planets in Cap now, it can feel like everything feels a bit stuck and jammed. But we can dislodge that by doing those kinds of things.
What I was going to go back to before was you said that, you know, 2020 has been a whammy of a year. I think people don't really get that to the depth that it really needs to be appreciated. I mean, I know we've lived through it with the pandemic, restrictions, blah, blah, blah. But I was reading that this astrological process that we've been going through this year hasn't happened for 3,000 years. That's major
It's huge. It's really huge.
Yes, it's like an eon thing, you know.
Oh, it is. This is the turning of ages. And,
Yes.
you know, we're sort of in that shift from the previous age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius, where sort of counting down the end of the Kali Yuga, which is a huge expanse of time.
Yep.
I mean, the Kali Yuga, the age of darkness, I mean, there's pretty much been, you know, war and famine and pestilence on this planet for so long. This planet's been run and function. But it's also related to 3D consciousness. This is also about a shift from 3D consciousness where we operate in survival mode and survival of the fittest and me against you, and it's every man for himself, and, you know, the patriarchal paradigm of domination. All of that's been part of the three-dimensional consciousness of physicality and time and all those limitations that we've been living in, which is also very Saturnian. This is like the lower expression of Saturn, the 3D level of consciousness. And remember, it wasn't until Uranus was discovered back in the 1700s, 1781, if my memory serves me correctly, that literally opened the first little door into the possibility of the age of Aquarius, into something completely different. Because up until then, we only knew about the planets up till Saturn, because they're the ones we can see with the naked eye. And so, and that is very sort of symbolic about this three-dimensional consciousness world that we've all been living in. And so there's been war and famine and struggle and hardship and slavery and, you know, government control and so on and so on and so on. And to shift out of that into 5D consciousness, which is a whole other paradigm, which many individuals have been in various stages, you know, moving into over the last decades, especially, you know, since the 60s and 70s was a trigger for the beginning of some real awakening. So, I mean, this is real. This is not some, you know, airy-fairy, wooey, woo-woo sort of fantasy idea. This is really happening. But it's a massive undertaking. And it doesn't happen like that. And we've all got work to do. We're all participating and we're all a part of it, you know, and like no one else is going to do it. We, each of us are all doing it.
Yeah.
And we're doing it together and individually. And we're all exploring that in whatever way we do, you know.
Yeah.
I think facing hard truth is a really important part of this.
And I think that's what I was touching on before, is we all have to do it in our personal lives as well as collectively. And you know, that's the part of learning to be more self-responsible.
Absolutely.
I think self-responsible, self-organizing as well. You know, I can see a time in the future when I don't think we will have a government the way that we have it these days. It's going to be very different.
Yeah.
I won't be around for that, but you know, give us a couple of 100 years, and I think if you came back to planet Earth, things would be very, very different.
You know what? I think it's going to happen even quicker than that.
Do you?
But in a couple of 100 years, it will be very different. But I think even over the next decade, we're going to start to see, because dismantling is beginning to happen. And I think over the next decade, even, we're going to start to see some new things start to be put in place.
Yes.
While the old, continues to be dismantled. And then it will be, decades to come throughout this century. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think, this is a time of seed sowing.
Absolutely. And new vision, because that shift into a new consciousness, into a more of Aquarian consciousness, is very different. And Saturn is still with us. So when I said before 3D is like that level of Saturn itself, again, I'm speaking metaphorically, but could also be real on some level, also awakens, because there's this higher expression of Saturn, as there is with every planet. And the higher expression of Saturn is what you spoke to, it's self-responsibility, wisdom, clarity, truth, integrity, honor. This is Saturn at his most venerable, at his most honorable, at his more sort of elevated position. At his lower expression, it's just all control, fear and control.
Yeah.
But at this other level, we awaken to self-responsibility and self-sovereignty, and, work together with people in a way that is just and honorable, with integrity. And can't wait, but that's what we're all facing in ourselves. Like, is this really integral for me? Is this my integrity? Am I being honest with myself? That's where it starts, isn't it? Am I being honest with myself?
Yeah.
Am I lying to myself right now?
Yeah. Yes, I think we're all looking at those sorts of things, aren't we?
Yeah.
And reassessing our beliefs, our values, all those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I listened to an amazing conversation the other day in the car. I'll mention it. It's the ABC show Conversations, Monday to Friday. If I'm in the car, I always listen to it because it's fantastic. They have these conversations with just ordinary people. Rarely do they chase up the rich and famous. It's just ordinary people, and I love that. This was a man, a father, worked in an industry. Long story about how it all came about, but he was really struggling financially and really worried, and he kind of was really distressed about what he was going to do to solve his financial problem. And he had an opportunity to steal some money from the company, and he did. And then he realized there was no going back, and he took more and he took more. He was caught and he ended up going to prison. But his story is so powerful because I could hear it in his voice. As soon as I heard his voice, I thought, this is a good person. Because his way of confessing and admitting, and the way he told his son what he'd done and fessed up and admitted and took his punishment and went to prison, and how he dealt with that, and then what he's done since he's come out, I was so impressed. And that's what I'm talking about. I thought, this is a man with integrity and honor. He made a mistake. He was tempted by this situation, and who hasn't been tempted by certain things, even if we've known they weren't right, to try and solve a problem, or we've told a lie to try and solve a problem, like these are the kind. I thought, this is a perfect kind of conversation to hear right now while Saturn is so strong. Like, this is what it's about. It's literally facing himself fully and owning up.
I think it's really hard for people to live in a society where integrity has been lost by its leaders.
Oh, completely.
Because you see what they get away, or seemingly get away with, and then you think, why should I? But then you've got to live with yourself.
That's right.
And you've got to live with the consequences within yourself. And the next time something comes up and you go, well, why shouldn't I do it? They don't care. Why shouldn't I do it? And those things build and build and build, becomes quite compounded, like that gentleman was saying in the conversation.
That's right.
But, it's our new future is going to have to grow from the ground up.
Yes.
Not from the top down.
That's right. From the ground up. And it's what you said about cleaning house, isn't it? That story is another illustration of cleaning house, and how then his his son surprised him with his responses. His son really got it, and would see him in jail, and their relationship is stronger than ever because he was honest.
Yeah.
We try and hide these things, or we feel shame, we keep them secret. We all do, it's part of what we do as humans. But yeah, this is such a potent time to fess up, basically, to ourselves.
Yeah.
Primarily.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. Like, the whole political system is pretty much corrupt to the core, and not functioning well at all. And imagine if politicians started standing in front of the nations and just fessed up and said, it's true, I've done this, this, and this, and I will take my punishment. Oh my God, the world would change so fast.
And I think there's something powerful in that confession. People are much more forgiving.
Absolutely.
Than what they realize. If someone comes to you and they're really honest with you about something, I did the wrong thing, they confess about that, people are forgiving.
Absolutely.
They may not forgive right then, but they'll forgive over time,
That's right. I can forgive anyone just about anything if there's real sincerity, real sincerity and humility. And absolutely, because we're all human. We all have weaknesses, like that man in a moment of weaknesses, he could not resist that opportunity that was just turned up on his desk, and he could see that he could do this, and he got away with it. No one discovered, so then he did it again. And
one of those key words for the age of Aquarius is transparency, isn't it?
Yes, it is. That's right.
Yeah, and that's what happens when you confess about things. You become transparent and vulnerable. And
I think what happens as we shift into another level of consciousness, which many of us kind of move in and out of, into 5D consciousness, that kind of thing can't keep happening, because there's so much more consciousness, awareness, light, natural integrity, heart connection, that those behaviors simply can't continue to operate. It's like John Lennon said, instant karma. Like, you immediately get feedback. Oops, no, wrong way.
Yeah.
Very, very, very fast.
And
this is karma as well. That's another thing I haven't mentioned. I mean, this is massively karmic, all of this. All these big, heavy planets in Capricorn, and Saturn particularly, Lord of Karma. This is karma. And karma isn't punishment. Karma is just the inevitable result of choices and actions that have gone before. It's not it can feel like punishment. That's why I think, on this planet now, each human being is wherever they absolutely need to be, in whatever country, whatever location, whatever state, whatever town, whatever they're experiencing in that location on planet Earth in 2020 is simply part of the soul contract where they need to be for whatever karmic reason. And it's not a punishment. It might feel like one, but
Well, that's interesting, because my Venus line goes through where I live.
How divine is that?
I know, I'm so lucky.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, great. Do you do astrocartography?
I do, and it's fascinating.
Well, you must tell people a little bit about that too.
Well, yes, you can. I mean, astrocartography was only created a few decades ago by a man astrologer called Jim Lewis, because we had computers to work with. So computers could generate these maps of the world, or of specific countries or localities, where the planetary lines of your chart can be located on the map. So as Sheryl was said, she lives on her Venus line, like, beautiful. I have a Mars line that runs through Australia. I don't live on it, wisely, but I did live on that Mars line for a year, and I've also traveled on that Mars line. And boy, oh boy, did I experience Mars energy. It was really strong, powerful. And when I was having big Mars transit. So it's like, but you need to know your time of birth, otherwise the map doesn't work. It needs to be pretty accurate, otherwise the lines can be way out. Or when you feel drawn to particular places, our soul calls us to particular places at certain times in our life, and we go there and we have certain kinds of experiences. Have a look at the Astro map, have a look at your planetary lines on the map. And so often, or if you've lived in another country or another state for a period of time and feel very connected, I've done that at different times. It really says a lot. Or, you can even use it like on the Venus line, it's also about love and relationship and partnership and just general well-being, and beautiful. Yeah.
But you could use it if you're thinking about moving, immigrating, traveling, all those sorts of things.
That's right. That's right.
Well, there you go. You do astrocartography. There you go, folks. You know where to book in now. And do tell us about your upcoming workshop too.
Well, the one coming up on the 11th, I think it is, of October. It's a Sunday. That's here at my house at Forest Lakes. I'm starting those up again, which will be lovely to have people actually here again, because it's gorgeous. So that's going to be a review of 2020. I've never done that before. I always do at the end of the year. I'll look at the year to come, but I just thought this is such a momentous year. I think we need a review. So we're going to look at the whole story again from the position of having lived through so much of it already. And it's quite interactive, so people bring their charts, we talk about their own experiences, their own transits, and so on. And then next month, I forget the date, I'm doing an online Zoom just on Saturn. And then in December, early December, I'll do another one here at home on the transits of 2021, which is quite a significant change of energy from 20. Well, it won't be magically that everything will all stop and be good again, but it's a real shift because we're moving forward. We're not going back.
Yes.
We're not going back to what was before, thank God, but we're moving forward.
More challenges in the future.
Challenges of a different
Big
kind.
challenges.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'll be in for that one. Definitely.
Beautiful. See you there.
Okay. Well, look, thanks so much again for your time and
a pleasure. So enjoy it.
Your wonderful knowledge and information and sharing it with the world. And you can find Babula via her website, which is?
Well, it's newdawnastrology.com.au. However, right now I'm in the process of doing a new one because that one's pretty kind of old and stale and it's not very active. So I'm working with someone right now as we speak to design a new one that will be much more user-friendly for me and hopefully for other people as well.
Yeah. Oh, terrific. So they can still find you at
or they can contact me at my email address, which is babulamoon@gmail.com.
Great. I'll put all those. I usually put your website, but I'll also put your email address in the description.
And I'm on Facebook as well, so Facebook Messenger is
terrific. Thanks so much again.
Thanks, Sheryl. Wonderful. Who knew we'd be doing this at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, who knew? There you go.
That's right.
It's kismet.
Kismet. That's right.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.